I've never played Outer Wilds, but in this series, I'm changing that. Welcome back. Waking up once more, I realised something. Timber Hearth is bigger than the observatory and surrounding areas. I decide immediately that I'm going to see if there's anything to discover right here on the home soil. I remember I attempted to look for one of the quantum signals on Timber Hearth some time ago, but chalked it up to the rock in the museum. That doesn't sit right, so I set out in search of the signal again, and I find the spooky rock. It's in a grove that has several signposts with what looks to be poetry scrawled across them. The centre of the grove has a small pond, as well as several of the geysers that seem to be everywhere you turn on Timber Hearth. I initially started to look around the glade further, checking the signs and the poetry written on them. Then it hit me. Geysers lead somewhere. I couldn't go to that place before. Now I have a suit. Now I can. With all the confidence of someone who thinks they've had a really, really good idea, I jump into one of the geysers. Maybe I should try this when it isn't, geysing. Is that what you would describe a geyser as doing? Do geysers guys? Anyway, back in we go. As I fall, I do have a brief thought that actually this was a really bad idea. Who does this? Well, apparently, I do. Time to have a look around. I'm plunged into a network of caves, carried along by the currents and, would you believe it, Nomai ruins and writing, down here in the depths of all places. I don't know why this is such a surprise. I'm still learning a great deal about the Nomai, but one thing that's been made certain in my travels thus far is that they were everywhere in this solar system. Why wouldn't they have been on Timber Hearth at some point, too? The writings down here reference some mining sites. Mining Site 2A wouldn't have been safe for the native life dwelling in the pools of the caverns. Was that us? So the Nomai sought a different location. A further site is referenced, 2B, not to be confused with existential androids. Whatever the Nomai were doing on Timber Hearth, it seems like Site 2B, whatever that is where I should seek out. Which might be easier said than done now that I think about it. Chance and sheer luck have brought me this far though, so maybe there's more to discover in this cave network. I still have plenty of fuel and oxygen, so I follow the current some more, occasionally being caught up in a geyser stream and being launched high into the atmosphere. It's pretty fun, honestly. Although I realise that it would also be a quick way to be sent back in time if I was to misjudge a landing. But that doesn't happen, so I'm gonna stick with it just being fun instead. The cavern network appears to loop back on itself, and I find myself back where I started. But as I'm launched by one of the geysers in the same room as I found the writings, I spot a Nomai structure. Remember what I said before about sheer luck basically being the driving force behind any progress that I actually make? Yeah, I think that's true. With no better leads to follow, I land and see where the structures lead me. Of course, the Nomai, prolific for signposts, a fact for which I am most grateful, identify the structures leading to Site 2B. Perfect. I'm in. They even thought to leave one of their fun little mechanisms behind for me to play with. They know what I like. Inside Site 2B, the Nomai structures lie in ruin, but there are surviving writings. A lot of ore is being used to construct the towers on Ash Twin, but the ore from here is being used to craft an immensely thick protective shell that will seal off a chamber within Ash Twin's core. In fact, all of the entrances to the chamber are being sealed. Apparently this is necessary as the smallest flaw or opening in the protective shell surrounding the Ash Twin project could lead to disaster. Huh. Another projection stone shows me the starry room and glowing masks again, just to remind me of how creepy that place is. There doesn't appear to be much else of note for me to find in this location, however I've learnt something pretty important, it feels like. If nothing else, this would explain why I wasn't able to find any trace of the Ash Twin project when I was exploring the planet earlier. I couldn't find anything because there wasn't anything to find. With all that being said, I'm still feeling a little directionless. The Ash Twin project is important, of that there is no doubt in my mind, but I'm still stumbling around in the dark. As I make my way back to the ship, a few more Nomai ruins, and what I now know to be a warp gate, catch my attention. There's still the quantum rock in the grove that I should look into some more as well. I return there, briefly, but I'm completely uncertain as to what it is I should even be looking for, and this doesn't exactly help with my sense of confusion and lack of direction. At least I know where the ship is, and I could do with refueling anyway. Perhaps the log will spark some inspiration. Quantum signals are what catches my attention, and I head to Giant's Deep as I believe that's the only place I'm yet to locate at least the origin of the signal. Then I get distracted. Every time I wake up, I see the structure orbiting Giant's Deep break apart, and on my approach to the planet, catches my eye, and I decided to land on it. As I recall, this was an orbital probe cannon, and the Nomai were launching probes from here to locate the eye of the universe. Landing is a fun exercise, as always, but I want to try something here. Let's, just for a moment, pretend that that didn't happen. Miraculously, I land without any incident on the cannon and head inside. I think that exercise worked. I think rewriting what actually happened is completely valid, and, you know, I'm in a time loop, I can do what I want. Inside the structure, several signs point to different modules, and I'm quite pleased that I've started to get a real groove going when it comes to navigating zero-G environments. The control room seems as good a place to start my exploration as any, so I make my way through, and earlier confidence out the window, I'm pleased to see some gravity floors. Ah, sweet solid ground. There's a launch module projection stone waiting for me in the control room. It seems that the Nomai were convinced they were close to finding the location of the Eye of the Universe. The writings here link to the information I found back at the construction yard on the surface of Giant's Deep. There is a specific power setting for the cannon that they shouldn't go over. The Nomai on board assume that their recklessness has been accounted for, so, naturally, they will be exceeding the recommendation. They do have an interesting scientific method, do the Nomai. Unfortunately, there was a problem with the power source, so the cannon was rendered unable to fire. Huh. Doesn't seem that unable to fire, given that at the start of every single loop, we watch it fire, but okay. Messing around with the Nomai mechanism within the control room shows a model of what appears to be the orbital cannon and what I assume is the Ash Twin project. A written log next to the model states that a request to launch a probe was received from the Ash Twin project 16 minutes ago. The cannon aligned with a random trajectory and then fired. The cannon then broke up in launch, but the probe tracking module is still receiving data. Unfortunately, only the control module is currently in working operation. The launch module is exposed to the vacuum of space, and the probe tracking module is missing. Not really an ideal situation, then. I head back to the main room to see what I can see with regards to the launch module, which does appear to have suffered at least some damage. I launch a scout into where the launch module should be, and sure enough, there's a rather large gap leading out into space. My mind goes back to the statue workshop. Could I get in there from outside? Worth a shot. I'm confident in moving around in zero-G, remember? Using the scout as a point of reference, I make it into the launch module without incident or floating off into the nether, so that's good. I've had enough anticlimactic endings to time loops for the time being. Parts of the launch module are still intact, including some information about the probe tracking module. However, I am running out of time. It's already been beyond 16 minutes since the probe launched, and I only have 22 before the sun explodes. All I can do is kind of hope that I've explored and discovered everything here that there is to explore and discover, but I'm probably not going to ever shake the feeling that I missed something. It's a small detail, but I really like that the Nomai refer to their better half as their better 50%. It's very fitting for what I know about the Nomai now, and I like it. Small details count. I'm starting to feel confident that I haven't missed anything important. In spite of that confidence though, I am kind of running around aimlessly now, not sure what to fill these last moments of the loop with. But then I spot the projection pool. I haven't used it yet. I use the probe tracking module projection stone and the vision shows me a place that I've never been, but nonetheless appears familiar. I think I might have just discovered what's inside the orb of Giant's Deep, but that will have to wait. I wake up and immediately set off for Giant's Deep. I know I can't get into the orb, but maybe there's something on the planet that could help. There's the quantum signal that I'm yet to locate, so, in lieu of anywhere better to start, I opt to start there. On Giant's Deep, the first thing I do is find the counterclockwise cyclone and take another look at the orb. I have no idea if the probe module is inside there, but it definitely matches what I saw on the projection back on the cannon. At least I can confirm that much. Back to the surface, the quantum fluctuation signal leads me to a particularly gigantic cyclone that I can't easily pass through. Can't go through it, go over it. Honestly, I'm amazed that it works. A large tower comes into view that is absolutely nomai in its design. Time to land and get to exploring. A nomai signpost welcomes me to the tower, stating that all who come here learn knowledge required for a quantum journey. That sounds promising. I step into the gravity lift and go up. And up. And up. And up. And up. At the apex of the tower, I'm greeted with an archway and a hole into the ground. I take a quick look around, but with nowhere else to go, I drop down and discover the first of several puzzles. The first is relatively straightforward. Seek the Wandering Arch. Of course, the arch is quantum, so when you're not looking at it, it moves. There's also the tiny, insignificant problem of the gravity on Giant's Deep being quite intense, so no jumping here. There are a lot of quantum objects in this place, including yet another creepy rock. That'll be the source of the actual quantum signal then. While here, I learned that quantum imaging isn't just something I thought was true and felt really clever about, it's the real deal. Observing a quantum object is the same as observing an image of a quantum object. Making my way through the tower involves using my scout to take photographs of various quantum objects, and using my own 4 eyes to make sure they remain in my perceived existence. Some of these puzzles are quite devious, but my mind starts to race at the possibilities presented to me within this place. The biggest thing I've learned here is that it isn't just the creepy rocks that behave in this quantum manner. I'm aware of the moon, and there have been references in nomai texts that things around the rocks shift on a quantum level, but the tower proves all of this to be true. If nothing else, the next time I visit one of the quantum rocks, I know I should be looking for something beyond what may initially appear before me. The next puzzle in the tower involves 2 objects, a crystal and an arch. It doesn't take too long until I realise what the solution is, and I feel super duper clever. Well, kind of clever. I've still not quite got the hang of firing my scout appropriately. But I've solved the puzzle, so yes, I do feel clever actually. Until I'm not. Quantum objects share a lot with cats, which is maybe one of the reasons why Schrödinger decided to use a cat in, that whole thing with the box and the radioactive decay. But they are like cats. You take your eye off them for one brief second and they're gone. So it's back to finding the arch, taking a picture, and then making sure when I climb the wall, I keep that crystal in my view at all times. Simple. The final challenge comes with a nice little warning that the Nomai made this one harder. All I've got to do is scale this wall. Doing so involves taking lots of pictures of these crystals and making sure that they remain in my view at all times. It's quite a devious little challenge. But I do eventually make it to the top. One final arch, and one final drop, and that marks the end of this step of the Nomai's so-called quantum journey. I enjoyed it. I'm not sure at all what I might find at the end of this quantum journey, but one final piece of writing in the tower confirms I should undertake it nevertheless, spelling out in no uncertain terms that the other quantum shards have lessons of their own to teach me. Travelling down this path is the first real objective the Nomai have provided, although I don't think I'm ever going to get used to the rocks appearing in front of me as they so often do. Creepy things. I didn't find the answers I was looking for, and I'm no closer to the probe module or the centre of the orb, but I'm glad for my visit to the tower here on Giant's Deep. I know all of these things are connected, so any thread unravelled is worthwhile, especially while I feel as lost and out of place as I currently do. I review my ship log regarding the remaining quantum signals and locations and take off once more, but I don't feel like I'm done on Giant's Deep yet. Gabbro mentioned there were 4 islands on the planet. I've now visited 3. The island Gabbro is on, the workshop, and the tower. What's on the 4th? I don't need to wait long to locate the island and find out. It's very different to the others, covered in what appears to be ice and branches. I gave the place a quick flyby from within the safety of the ship before landing. This place is definitely peculiar. I even get a visit from a cyclone while doing so. Honestly, I'm quite glad that happened while I was in the ship rather than out of it. But we're here now. The first thing I stumble on after exiting the ship is ghost matter. At first, I presume there is a lot of it, but actually that isn't the case. Using the scout, I'm able to pick a safe path through the branch structures, although I must admit this was particularly terrifying, as one wrong step would send me back to sleep after all. It's almost like it's a maze. If I just treat it as a maze, just avoid the ghost matter and go through the maze. Amazing. Amazing or not, it takes me a little while to be fully satisfied that this direction isn't the direction I should be heading. And I'm really not convinced that this direction is correct either. I'm gonna just use my scout a lot whilst I traverse these branches. My exploration leads me to an old campsite next to a large ice structure, which appears to contain several of the jellyfish creatures that can be found below the surface of Giant's Deep. I roast a quick marshmallow, then find a log. The writer appears to be Feldspar, the traveller who went missing. The log states that Feldspar was able to get down to the core of Giant's Deep, and states that brute force isn't always the answer. Oh damn. Feldspar signs off the log with a clear direction. They went to Dark Bramble. All this time I've been struggling for a direction, and this journey to Giant's Deep has given me 2 new avenues to explore. The Quantum Pilgrimage and finding Feldspar. I'm too excited by the prospect of learning how to get into the core of Giant's Deep, so without any hesitation I set a course for Dark Bramble. Up to this point, I've learnt very little about Dark Bramble. All I've discovered is that whatever it is now grew out from what used to be a planet. It looks like a writhing mass of roots all expanding out from a weird, hollow core. The core appears to have a light inside it. My approach to Dark Bramble isn't ideal and I crack the cockpit slightly, but I managed to stabilise the ship and head inside. I'm sure that crack in the cockpit won't be a problem. If anything, it just adds a bit of character. I'm greeted with what I can only describe as fog and several lights glowing in the distance, blinking at me occasionally. Giant's Deep felt violent. Brittle Hollow has killed me several times, but this place is different to anything I've seen on my journey so far. I don't like it here. I'm slow, taking a lot of care to pilot the ship through the fog. I'm not sure what I should be looking for. All I know is Feldspar came here. Then I learn what the source of the lights is. I don't like it here at all. Worse, I don't actually know how to get out. Lights in front of me are suddenly a lot less welcoming, and I really wish I didn't send that scout, actually. This is the first time I've taken comfort in the loop closing. I know that I have a way out of here because eventually I'm going to wake up again. For now, either I find a way out, or find something that makes the trip worthwhile. So far the monsters appear to be ignoring me. But as the music starts, a gut-wrenching roar changes that perception entirely, and one of them sets about my ship. Nothing really prepared me for any of this. Nothing about this place makes sense either. Inside of that fog is a lot larger than it appears on the outside. My luck holds out, and I find an exit. I let my ship fly away from Dark Bramble, but never let it leave my sight. Without warning, I crash back into Giant's Deep and plunge below the waves. Maybe the supernova isn't so bad after all. It's confusing, dark, and terrifying. So thank you for joining me on my continuing expedition. Until next time, it's been Outer Wilds.